Councillor Andy Cranston, can you... Happy birthday, mate. I hope we're not live. Could you do a Karakia, please?
Manaki tia tēnā hui, manaki tia tēnā roki. Tuku a mātou whakaro ki a mātou whānau, huri no i te motu, huri no i te ao huri nui. Manaki tia na kaupapa o te rā. Arahina na whitiwhiti kōrero kai wainganui i a mātou, arahina na whitiwhiti whakaro kai wainganui i a mātou, arahina na pātai, arahina na ture nei ki a puta ai te marama. Bless this meeting, bless this group. Send our thoughts to our friends and relations throughout the land, throughout the world. Respect the subjects that we'll be dealing with today. Respect our rules of engagement, and from it will come better things.
Fantastic, thank you so much. Okay, we have an apology from Councillor Ria, and we have an apology for lateness for Councillor Tupara. Someone like to read that? Councillor Robinson, Your Worship.
Aye.
We have no declarations of interest. Confirmation of non-confidential minutes. That's on page 5. And confirmation of non-confidential minutes of the 6th of November meeting. Do I have a mover or a second, please? Moved by Councillor
Councillor Foster. I'll second it.
Seconded by Councillor Gregory. All in favour?
Aye.
Okay, we've got the action register on page 10. Where is there?
Thank you, Chair. Page 11, and Waiaki transformation. And I'm not any information on that for an unknown length of time. I'd just like to know, is anyone starting or thinking of starting a trial on using marker seed as a method of re-establishing native? Come up a few times, but no one's actually said that it's happening definitely. And I'm just wondering how and when we can pin that one down.
So we're on page 11 of the action register.
Yeah.
Whose phone is going?
Sorry, well that was for... Oh. Was that for the page, the...
Question for Kerry.
The Waiaki transformation.
Yeah, look, this has been looked at. I'll follow up what has been done up there. I know there's been other work done outside of the beautiful area, but we'll follow up with feedback for you in the next few weeks. But it's often quite right, and it's something we need to look at. Certainly something we're looking at in the Transition Advisory Group.
Thank you, Gary.
Okay, no more queries. We've got our governance work plan. It's on page 11. Page 12. Where is that? 15. Oh.
Thank you very much, Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Just in regards to the Waiaki Transformation Program update, which meeting is it going to be updated at? Because it's not highlighted.
It's not we can sort through that.
Okay.
Yep, I can sort through that with Amy.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll go straight to page 14, and that's draft fees and charges. Ellie.
Tomorrow.
Oh, sorry.
We're
Yeah,
at the Reynolds Hall.
yeah, sorry.
I'm in the wrong meeting.
They like, I reckon.
Sorry, I'll take that up from there. Okay, we've got the maintenance commitments and Reynolds Hall, Tolaga Bay, Wharf. Page 30.
Morena. Okay, so Reynolds Hall background has been provided in the report. Happy to address any questions related to the findings there. So we do understand Hall was opened 1915, registered in a historic place, serves the Tolaga and West community as an important venue ongoing for community meetings. So we have some history there in relation to an MOU which was drafted in 2017 and work done between Council and the Reynolds Hall Trust to determine obligations through that MOU. Although the MOU was approved by the committee and the Trust indicated support for that draft, we've been unable to find a signed copy of the MOU. We've done some deep diving for this report and we're still unable to find a signed copy. Although not envisaged by the MOU, we have been maintaining the hall through the mowing schedule of our community caretaker services. We have not had any recent requests from the Trust for any further investment or maintenance on behalf of the Trust to Council. So for livable communities, we are happy to, as we discussed in the discussion options, we're happy to seek a meeting with the Reynolds Hall Trust and trustees to understand their expectations and then prepare a letter outlining that. We would work to finalise an MOU on that basis. We would prepare an options for Council to consider around financial implications and any other key pieces of information relating to the requests of the trustees from that initial meeting. So we do understand some conversation has been around in potential transferring the land or the hall to Council, and so we would need to do some work around the risks for Council in doing that, and also any precedent setting for that decision making process. And finally, we would consider advice and support as outlined in the MOU, just to determine what we can commit to for the future. We have full intention of continuing the mowing and the maintenance that we have been doing at this stage. That's where we've landed for the work that's being done in preparation for the report. Happy to answer any questions or agree to take on those options as next steps.
Thank you for that, and thank you for an extensive report. Really interesting to read what we've done and how it's been done in the past. And also a big shout out to the trust that did the renovations way back. The only question I had was, have this been communicated to Mr. Bibby yet? Is he aware of the information here? And has someone spoken?
Not that I'm aware of. We wanted to present to Council this morning. I wasn't sure whether Clive would be present this morning, but happy to relay this information back to him.
Thank you. That's awesome. Thank you.
It states that it was agreed in 2017 to do this, but then a signed copy can't be found, irrespective of whether there's a signed copy or not. If we've agreed to this, we'd get on and get it done. Like, we don't need to revalidate something that's already been agreed on.
With the MOUs, we do consider time past and changing circumstances. So when the MOU was formed, the needs of the Trust may have been different to what they're requiring now, considering the time that has gone and the investment they have already made or may have made into the hall. So yes, we will, as I mentioned, continue mowing, which has been the commitment that we've continued outside of the MOU, but we do recommend that we re-meet with the Reynolds Hall Trust to determine what their current requirements are for the MOU, rather than, I guess, just carrying on as a what we think we know scenario.
Councillor Parata.
Morena tatou. Thank you for the report. I personally think this is a really good model of working with communities, the MOU, that the community itself or the trust maintain over the facility or the property, and the council's support. It sort of feels like a clever model of working together. So that's the only feedback I had, and also wanted to support that Clive get an update on what's happening. Other than that, I'm happy to move the paper. I'm happy to second.
Before we move the paper, there's also the Wharf that's been included in this paper, and I'd just like to get some clarity actually about the Wharf, because it's half closed and it's one of our biggest tourism icons of the region, and I don't see any plans. So can we please talk about that for a bit? What plans there might be?
Question, was that on the?
No, it was on the wall. Yeah, I was just checking that we were going to get there.
Right. Okay. Well, I'll open up about. I mean, unless there's someone who wants to talk about the Reynolds Hall more.
No, on the Wharf.
Riri, and then Councillor Thompson.
I was just going to ask, similar to what you were just saying, that it seems like we've closed it at halfway and that's the end of that. Is it something that needs a group of people, a trust or something to form, like previously, how they raised that money? I mean, I know that council doesn't have the money to do it, but what can we do to help to get it up to standard so that it can still remain a major feature on the East Coast for people who come to visit?
I can speak to a bit of background on the Wharf, and apologies for Libby Young not being here today. The words summarise here nicely the background of the Wharf, also born in the 1920s, 660 odd metres long. It received an amount of funding, a sizable amount of funding 10 years ago now, and subsequently we've been maintaining reviews of the bridge. It has accelerated its decline, unfortunately, and some of that is to do with the weather conditions and woody debris and other things hitting into it. It's not alone, it's the only wharf that we maintain in our areas. We've also got a few more up the Cape. In terms of the second half of the wharf is more deteriorated than the first, so that's why the safety chain is there. It's not potentially not all that effective because it's ignored by people, and unfortunately the wharf is deteriorating at a rate where any investment would be sizable. We certainly support the Save the Wharf Trust, I believe that they're called, in Tolaga, and we'll do anything within our powers to support those claims, and also reflect that it is a really popular place to visit when you're in the region or for locals. Absolutely. I think people have evidence when you go there on a summer day, there's people showing up all the time. And the limitations we have is that this is basically coming out of the same budget that our roads and our everything else are funded from. So, and there's no industry. It's not actually the purpose for it originally was to export. And now that without those supporting industries funding for its maintenance, it's really challenging for to do that. Yeah.
Thompson, and your worship.
There's no question whether Tolaga Bay Wharf's an asset for Tolaga Bay and the community. Whenever I have visitors, normally do the Cooks Cove Walk, Tolaga Bay Wharf, it's sort of a prominent thing for Gisborne. It's a bit of a tourism hub. The questions I had are on a similar line. Says we received 5.5 million of restoration works, but we've only spent 233 from 2014. Was that money, the rest of that money spent prior to 2014, or have we got that money sitting there? It doesn't really say.
The 5.5 million was spent at the time on reinforcing the first part of the wharf.
So that's prior to 2014.
That was in 2014. And then subsequent to that, we've spent a total of 233,000, I think, on works related, and I can't speak to the detail, but works related to maintaining the wharf since then. So that was a grant at the time, and the nature of grants mean you've got to spend it then. So that would have been spent on reinforcing those first few piers.
It also says it's registered under historic places. It mentions we've got a legal obligation for safety, but similar to the Peel Street toilets, do we have a legal obligation to upkeep, seeing it's a historic places?
We don't.
We don't. And my last question was, do we have a figure? What work needs to be done in a figure to reopen it from halfway? That would be good to know what work in an actual figure, so we know what we're dealing with.
I don't have a figure to deal with, but I think the cost for the last one would be a good initial idea of the scale that you'd be talking about to repair. So that $5 million 10 years ago might be replicated now to receive a similar benefit.
So is there a lifespan for the first half? Have we got a decent lifespan on the first half for that investment, or is it?
Good question. From some of the pictures shown in the report, you can see once you've got you can do lifespans on static state. So when something isn't deteriorating, the seawater is getting into the reinforcements, and then it's going to speed up. So we're essentially, to be totally honest, we're managing decline here. That's what we're dealing with. So to reverse that is a major intervention with capital that we don't have at hand, and at a scale that we're unlikely to be able to attract very easily. So that's what we're dealing with.
I've got two questions, or one observation first. We had a massive success when we did the War Memorial Theatre with a trust structure where it's removed from council. It is still a council facility, and people were ducking when they were seeing us, hiding behind their cars because we were trying to get money from anywhere and everywhere. But people, and small little fundraising stuff, like what we did in the War Memorial Theatre, where your name can be on a seat or your whānau's names can be on seats. The same for, if you discuss this with Clive, you can have communities sponsoring 1 metre or 2 metres or working towards that. So that's just an observation I wanted to make. Then my question, and it may be another observation, is the Prime Minister and the government has announced huge injections into tourism. I know that in the past we have used funds to do up some wharepaku, and you can latch onto some of that's the Tokomaru Bay toilet we did that way. I want to urge you to please take a look. I'm sure some of that money will have to come to the regions. Not everything can go to Queenstown. So if we can take a look to see, is there maybe something we can qualify to do some minor stuff which might complement that area, because we know that area is a hive of activity and it will become even a bigger hive if we have that wharf back in a condition where because we advertise that actively when we advertise our region. So may I ask staff to actively investigate the monies that were given and see if there's maybe some place that we can tap in some way to work on our wharf or any other tourism stuff for our region. Thank you. There was no question.
Councillor Preston.
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, a few of us were here right through the process of getting those renovations done on the wharf. It was a massive undertaking. Is there an indication of how well the new stuff is going? When we talk about the pole damage, I can sort of understand with the wood and a lot of that being damaging, but the spalling's a concern for me. If the spalling is in the new build, which is only, 12 years old or something, I'd be really concerned that something so new is breaking down so early in the process. So I'd like to have some idea of how the new stuff is holding up and what its future is. And then when you indicated that we might be able to use that budget for the ongoing, what might be in front of us to get more restoration done, it's not actually a very good indicator, because where we got to was as you got further out, it got more challenging and the costs were greater because of you working in the water as opposed to where they were done. A lot of it was done at low tide when the piles were exposed. So yeah, having it closed from halfway out, it's going to be really, really challenging to do those piles because they're always under the water. And so, yeah, so a couple of things there. How good is the new stuff holding up? And yeah, just an indicator that getting that last bit done is going to be incredibly challenging.
Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Paragraph 11 refers to a survey completed to generate a baseline 3D computer model condition of the wharf. Has that been brought to us as a report, or do you have that?
We can I can see what we've got. I can't speak to it personally, I wasn't involved with it, but I can see what outcomes distributed.
The reason I ask is, having read the report, I don't have any idea, and I don't think anyone who reads this report have any idea actually as to the condition of the wharf. I mean, it just simply says it's blocked off. It's pretty endless, and I don't mean that disrespectfully, because if we are going to either, as the worship suggested, go to the central government and seek some putia, we need a really good paper which accurately reflects the status of the wharf at the moment, pathways for repair, pathways for managed retreat or managed decline, as you say. And I'd like to see something brought back to us that really just captures that, because I'm sorry this report doesn't give me that detail.
Yeah, I think we all agree that the future of the wharf is actually really important for this region. Like I said, it's probably used as our number one tourism entity for most of the advertising for this region. There's always a picture of the Tolaga Bay Wharf, and it's really sad to see that it's deteriorated in a way, and it's closed halfway along. Also, the future of the motor camp, it would be reliant on the Tolaga Bay Wharf as well. So, and the Tolaga Bay community, so because it attracts so many people, I think, it's astounding figures of how many people visited that wharf every summer. And you just go there and you see the amount of people that go there daily. It's incredible. So that whole area is so important to the future and for the future of our region. So I would really like to see an in-depth report and some ideas of how we can raise the money to keep it sustainable, because even though it's not being used, and it hasn't been used for a long time, it's got the point. It's got history, and it's an icon. So we need to save it, and it's well used by the locals for fishing. I know I used to go surfing off the end of it, dive off it to go hole in the wall out to the Cook's Cove. It is used by a lot of different community in the region. Councillor Alder.
Thank you, Chair. We also need to keep a bit of reality here. We see how much our local wharf is costing to fix. Unless we can get someone like Elon Musk interested in flying up his yacht there and funding the build. The reality is that we're probably not going to be able to afford it in the future. And we're going to have to start thinking about some sort of managed retreat on it. It's going to become more and more dangerous, and that should be part of the ongoing plan as well.
I think Nadine, did you want to say?
Oh, yes, so, hello.
A long time.
Through the chair, just in terms of the Wharf and taking on board Councillor Robertson's comments about providing some more robust information about the condition of the Wharf, we can certainly bring that back. I would suggest that this is considered as a broader suite of tourism interventions, not in isolation alone, because we do have, we were working with the Tukumaru Bay community in terms of restoration of their wharf as well. We've done a lot of work in the past around feasibility of opening up different wharves across the region. That didn't go down that well when we looked for external funding for that. So I would suggest that there's a bit more work to do in this space before kind of diving in and doing fundraising and committing staff time to that effort without fully understanding the restrictions, the costs and the implications of doing so.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. You're 100% correct. The future of the Wharf is important, and like you, I'm sure many of us around this table have fished off that wharf or dived off that wharf or surfed off it. But I do want to make it clear, particularly for those on live stream and for the media, that the only way this wharf will survive is via grant and government funding. There is no way at all our ratepayer can afford to keep this wharf. There is zero way. And it's important to say that because it's not been said yet. Like this is prohibitively expensive, and even looking at grant funding will be a huge stretch as well. Because if it was 5.5 to do kind of half of it back 11 years ago, then it's going to be probably way much more to do that with today's prices, with today's weather. I 100% agree that part of the conversation around maintaining and managing this gem up there at Uwawa is also talking about how we manage that wharf back so that it's safe, people can still enjoy it in some way, shape or form. What that looks like, I'm not too sure, but we need to have a realistic conversation and set expectations for our region. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Okay, we did have a mover for this paper. Was anyone else want to talk about different parts of it?
Second by Worship the Mayor.
Second by your Worship. All those in favour?
Aye.
Was a voting report. So. Okay, I don't think we've got anyone from Trek.
Yes, we do.
Oh, yes, we do. Right. Okay. It's on page 86.
Okay, so the Trek update, this is the highlights here. We're 80% through the physical work program in Tairāwhiti, so that's the number of sites that we are doing. So 140 projects completed of 170 total for Tairāwhiti. And later this year, we're sort of in about the next 6 months, we're at a point now where a lot of our smaller sites are being closed out. And we will, as they get closed out, we've still got our larger projects that will be coming into construction shortly. So that's the Mangahuini Gorge, Hikuai #1 bridge replacement, Rotatahi Swamp and Nesbitt Stip. So that's the next sort of 6 to 9 months. We've still got a lot of small projects, and then we morph into concentrating on these larger projects for the next construction season. So physical works.
quick question, Richard, you said 80% of the workspace have been done. That's on a number base.
Yep.
As in volume and workload, where does that stand? Because clearly it's not 80% of the workload, is it?
Well, our completion date is, our current target completion date is June 2026.
Okay.
Hawke's Bay will finish a little bit sooner than that, about Christmas this calendar year, so December 2025. We're a little bit further ahead than that, and we don't have the large projects down there that create the sort of tail on our program. We're tracking well against budgets, and with a lot of cost savings being brought in through a lot of initiatives within the Alliance, and our liaison groups are going well of Hikuwa and Wini. So the Trek project map, we've opened up part of our GIS system to the public, so anyone can go online and track progress on those sites. It's just broken into 3 categories, sort of in planning, in construction, and work complete. And that's kept up to speed, up to date.
Sorry, Richard, what was that website again?
So it's nzta.gov.t. If you search Trek, NZTA Trek, you should be able to find your way through there. So the summer hotspots for this season are Kokoroa. We've got a number of sites underway there at the moment. Mangahuini Gorge, we've got 2 sites underway there currently, one with Damien Wall, and we've got some early earthworks on the river alignment that were brought forward after the rain we had on Boxing Day. The road was becoming a threat again. Mordere Hill, there's drainage works underway down there, and Stateway 2 will talk, still got plenty of work to do there going forward. There's a Stateway 2 update. That photo's Mordere Hill. You can see the amount of water that's coming out of the drains that have been putting in there. So that will slowly dewater that slope, and we won't completely remove all of the issues, but the engineering behind it suggests that it will slow down the slope quite a bit and reduce the amount of movement. There's some before and afters of 2 of the sites on Otoko Hill that were recently completed. You can see, and you can see the number of sites that we've completed up there and still got to go. We've got 2 in construction at the moment, and we're looking to utilise the road closure in the Waiwaki Gorge that has come up and has been deferred till next week for part of it, to align with some tree removal if we can get everything lined up. While the traffic volumes are low, we'll cause disruption.
Chair, so just on that point, I've had some community feedback and concerns around the gorge closure. Can you just tell us the period that gorge is meant to be closed for? Are you talking about extending that period?
Yeah, so the original closure was weather affected, so that was deferred until, I think the new dates, we were starting from Monday the 24th, 25th, 26th. But we can circulate those to council members, those closure dates. 10 a.m. till 6 p.m. So on 35, we've got quite a cluster of work around Kokoroa at the moment, with 3 sites there, as well as Awatiri to the north. The Karakia Bridge, we're not active on that one at the moment, but it's a project that's still got work to be done on it. Mangahuini Gorge, we've got 2 sites in there, and Makatoti dropout number 3, got buttress support going on as well. So it's quite busy up the coast at the moment.
Yes.
And we've recently completed a job right up near the boundary at Orweka. Mangahuini Gabian's first stage is complete. They're working into the second stage. Whakari Bluff, just north of Mangahuini. The inner Putaru Soldier Pile Wall, that was in over to the culvert, over to Strait. Wainamboim Bridge replacements. So we're very close to design completion milestone. We've passed the 50%. Demolition, package of work for demolition is out for tender. We're targeting local suppliers for that. And we also have another work package that will be to another local supplier who successfully won that the first time round. And then the procurement of the bridge itself will be broken into packages. And the reason for breaking it into packages is to allow as much input of local suppliers as possible. The structure itself will be open tender. And we're just working through how that, whether it's one packages or two. And so that will go open tender on gets, and we're hoping that although there's some specialist work involved in that, some local suppliers can get, team up with larger suppliers and work together there. So yeah, so that's open tender. There's a lot of the big suppliers do have a track record of hanging out with small local suppliers. Really makes sense, not just for local employment, it's just economical sense that they don't have to bring all their people in, they can use local labour and local skills.
Is that an expectation that you project to the bigger suppliers, that there's an expectation they will try to source local?
Yeah, so we're just working through how we incorporate that in our procurement documents. But as part of the discussions that we have, we do say that there's an expectation that you are looking to local. So, Mangahuini Gorge. Again, this project will be broken up into packages of work. So a little bit different to Hikuai Bridge, Mangahuini Gorge. All of the packages of work there, we have local suppliers that have the capabilities to do it. So we're hoping to get good local involvement there. We'll, once we get closer to the time, we'll get a better idea of exactly what that is. But the treatments that have been designed, we have local suppliers that can deliver all of them. It might come down to capacity and what else work they've got on, but we're pretty hopeful of getting a good outcome there. So we're aiming for design work to be completed this summer and then into construction season. Rototahi Nesbitt Stip, they're both coming on quite well. Rototahi's fully designed, we're just about to submit consent on that. These two both go through a normal consenting regime, so the consents are getting, Nesbitt Stip consent is in, Rototahi is very close, we just got a couple of things to tick off before we can submit. And they'll both be in construction for next season as well.
When you talk about the next season, you talk about
from September next year, starting in the spring. So the construction season starts, goes through to the end of autumn. We don't like to open up these sites in winter because we spend more money chasing mud around than actually building roads.
Just a question on that, Nesbitt. Did you look hard at building, between the council and the roading system? Would it have been cheaper to build a stop bank to stop the river coming into that area? And was that investigated?
It was considered. One of the issues with Nesbitt's Dip is it's quite a large area that holds surge capacity for the flood scheme. So it's both sides on the inland, on the southern side of the road, away from the river. There's quite a large area in there that floods when the river comes up. And if we'd taken that away, we would have had adverse effects to the flood scheme, and we would have potentially increased the flood level back upstream, backing the river up further. So, there are other areas on that flood scheme where there's sort of sacrificial floodplains that aren't populated, that allow for the river level to not reach the same height. So we would have had negative effects if we had gone with a stop bank, and we also wouldn't have got away from the fact that all of the water in that catchment still has to go somewhere, and we're stopping it going into the river, so then that would still likely have flooded the road. Karakia Way.
You're not going to create a big dam with that road on the southern side, is you?
No, so we'll be replacing the culverts with larger culverts to allow the water to pass freely between both sides of it, to you don't create a dam.
There is a bit, there is a bit of community concern out there about that. It's more or less, looking from the outside in, that's more or less putting a stop bank up further away from the river. In other words, you raise, and there is concern about where does that water go. So I think that can be relayed to the community.
Take that on board.
That's what I have heard you away.
Well done, Mary, thank you.
10 out of 10.
Hi Richard. Drove down this morning from Wharekahika on the 35, just about fell into a pothole outside just before Mangahauini, got a hell of a fright, that one. But I see on the map there's a whole lot of stuff that's showing as works completed.
Yep.
It don't seem to me to be completed. Driving on the road, is the plan still to ensure that State Highway 35 has 2 lanes all the way through? Because currently not.
Yeah, our recovery funding funds us to the previous level of service. And there is one section on Highway 35 that was previously single lane. So we're trying to get that back to 2 lane at the moment. But yeah, the funding is to restore it to the previous level of service and recovery, which means 2 lanes wherever possible, where feasible. So there's just one section that was single lane before the cyclones, but we've got work on site at the moment to try and widen it back out. Yeah. So once we can get an assessment whether it's safe to mark 2 lanes.
Currently D9 is one single lane, Kemps Hill, all quite dangerous spots.
So those are planned works that we've got coming up.
Okay. And my other question was, no, not a question, just a thank you to for the team that came through with the Rural Roadshow, that are accompanying the Rural Roadshow. It's great because the community get to see who's who and also just ask their questions directly to Trek for clarification of what's happening. So I think just keep that up, keep up that relationship that's happening there, because the communities respond well to the Rural Roadshow and they see consistency.
Yeah, so we was planning on to continue attending the Rural Roadshow. And we have a monthly little update on Radio Ngāti Whanau about what work is going on the network. And we'll continue to push the communication out to the community to make sure keep people up to date.
Yeah, that's really appreciated, and the hard copies that also go into mailboxes is really helpful, especially for a lot of our pakeke who aren't online, but they do travel the road frequently, and they do read the stuff that comes to them in the mail. So thank you for that.
In the community.
Saved. Here we go.
Yeah, so we'll continue with the Rural Roadshows that we've got coming up, just past now. And then so we've got the comms on the website, we've got that online map, and the newsletter that can be signed up to for, that we've got the email address here to sign up for e-newsletters to keep up the date directly as well with what's going on. And we've got, LinkedIn and Facebook, we're putting social media as well to try and push the message far.
Tēnā koe, Richard. I want to come back to the part that you spoke about procurement and in relation to the engagement of local roading businesses and workforce. Can you explain a bit about the methodology used that makes sure that that actually becomes tenable within the procurement strategy, understanding that you'll have level one people like FH that will have specific expertise that the locals won't have, and I appreciate that you'll want to work those between, but I'm more interested in the tin tax of how you ensure the percentage of the contract actually allows for greater esteem for the locals.
Yeah, so our alliance agreement that NZTA holds with TREC, it has some prescribed KPIs. I think it's about 33%, I think it is, for local involvement in the KPIs there, with a stretch target of 50. We're still tracking at 79.7% or something was our last of the contestable packages of works going to local suppliers. Very little has gone to the big guys. A lot of the other 20% is specialist services, such as ground anchors, where we've got limited local capacity. So especially in Hawke's Bay, actually, we've had a lot of those, Auckland contractors. That's just what they do. They travel the country doing it.
Thank you, Richard. Just as a final comment, I want to say that's very encouraging to hear you share those statistics. Thank you very much.
And on top of that, too, our procurement philosophy, local first. So we've got supply panels, and we go to local first. If we don't have capacity or capability locally because it's specialist, or our local suppliers just are busy elsewhere, then we'll look wider. The way this program sort of rolled out is that it's been at the right size where we can keep most of that on.
Wonderful, thank you very much.
Cranston.
Yeah, thanks for that, Richard. A concern around efficiency of spend and robustness of projects. I'm not sure if it was in TREC's time, it may have been Waka Kotahi, but down the bottom of Makaroi Hill, there was a massive job done there to retain, with a retaining wall, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars and months of work, and it's already pushing out. It's already starting to look like it's failing, and it's probably not even a year old. So when that sort of thing does happen, the community drives past and thinks, man, all that money gone in there, and the thing's just going to blow out anytime. It's quite disappointing to see that sort of thing. So,
yeah, I know the job. It was done before TREC as a result of one of the earlier weather events. So it was emergency works. It was probably done in quite a short time frame to keep the road open. And, we are seeking funding to do further work. Waiting to see how those requests.
But even under emergency works, it's pretty inefficient spend to have something that fails so quickly. It's been pointless because it's just going to blow out.
Yeah.
Anytime soon.
At that particular site, we knew that we needed to do something immediately for the short to mid-term while we come up with a longer-term plan for the site. So I suppose for that particular site, it's just watch the space, and we're seeking funding to do more remedial work.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your report. Just a quick comment on that Makarori. I saw what happened at that. It was a perfectly well-built dam wall that had a few slips on it, and exceedingly wet conditions, someone drove a digger on top, and it was the digger's weight that caused it to pump out. So it's really an insurance claim, I would think, for someone's bad behaviour.
No, so one of the key aspects when we build these structures is the drainage of the water. A retaining structure like that will never hold back the force of a large slip. So you need the most cost-effective way to slow these features down on our East Coast landscape is to manage the water. And when that work was done, there's a series of drainage features in it, some horizontal holes that go into the slope to relieve the groundwater pressure, and also the surface water features. And they're actually the critical part of the engineering design. The retaining wall is great because it stops the last bit from spilling onto the road. It's not actually its job to hold the whole slope back, it's just to keep the last bit off the road.
Okay, sorry, that wasn't my question, Chair. It's great to see that this open tendering and the local first approach. I think we've done much the same on our own roads. It's something that's been commented to me quite frequently on a number of different jobs, is that our local contractors go in there and do a job, and I've been told the dollar bill they've asked for, their share of the bill, and the total bill has been trumped by one of the big boys who have virtually doubled the bill and appear to have done very little on what I've been told. Are you up against that same problem with our local contractors and the big boys?
It's a case-by-case basis. When we procurement, it's always, when we go through our procurement, it's a transparent process. So an open procurement is we put forward, the lowest price along with the right attributes wins the job, irrespective of if they're a big supplier or a small supplier. And got capacity to do the work, and they're at the funding envelope that we can afford.
To the companies, I won't mention names, do they then add to that bill? Do they put a sort of a management fee on top?
Not in the trick a lot. In an alliance structure, all of the work is, I suppose, subcontracted through the supplier panels, and the alliance acts as like a project management office to do all the back end work. So we don't, I suppose, click the ticket on that. It's we have a cost for that management structure, and then so it's not like a traditional contract where you have a head contractor that goes and then procures all of the subcontractors separately. We have a supplier panel that, so that 80% is of the work that goes through the suppliers.
Councillor Pahuru.
Thank you. Sorry, I did another bite of the cherry, but I just wanted to compliment you guys on the mahi that's being done, engaging hapu. Well, I know it can get pretty complex sometimes, and you're persevering and working on those relationships, which is really great to see. I just recall the bullet point on the Jeru culvert. Around that area has been a major concern for those who own homes just down from the marae. Have they been engaged in the works that are happening there? Because the impact of the flooding previously it's meant that homes are having to be moved, and that river keeps encroaching on the backyards of the whānau down there. Have they been?
I would have to follow up on the specifics of that one. I know that the work we did on that culvert was fairly minor, I suppose, because we're not funded for the big improvements that we ideally like to do. So that culvert got a bit of an extension on it, and is going to get some lining work done to get it sealed better. But I'll have to follow up to see the details of who it's spoken to.
Yeah, I think it'd be just give them some comfort to know, like, what are the impacts that culvert's going to have at the next big weather event. Because it's pretty scary when it's in full flood, and some homes have already been moved. So conversation with them would go forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Richard.
And I'm happy to second it.
A mover by Councillor Cranston and a seconder. All those in favour?
Aye.
All right, we'll have a cup of tea before we... Infrastructure.
One page.
We're on page...
38. I've now had 5 pages thrown at me. 38, sorry.
Starting on page 42, Land, Rivers and Coastal. But I'll just let you know now, from now on, the next operations meeting, there will be a CBD part of our operations infrastructure, because there's been a lot of work being done on the CBD program for the future, and this will be a great opportunity to track that and give an idea of what the proposals are and how we can get through it and make it something in the environment.
Remember to come 2 o'clock on Thursday if you are in town. There's
And
an
also,
update.
well, meetings as well. There's one tonight out at Manatuki. I've had to put on apologies in but my wedding anniversary today, so.
Years, Larry.
30.
Anniversary.
Another cake.
I'd be happy if I went off to a meeting tonight. So, but,
You've got an excuse.
Manatuki tonight, so anyone that can attend would be fantastic. And our staff will be all there doing their thing and letting their community know what's happening in their area. So anyway, if we go straight to page 42, we've got land, rivers and coastal. And Tim, are you going to be?
Yeah, I can speak on behalf of the team. There's little change from the last report on this. I hope you noticed that we've made an effort to get more visuals in there. The topics on the land, rivers and coastal are largely similar. And there's also a tracker there showing our expenditure to date against planned. But I take it as read and accept any questions from the floor.
I think it's easiest if we just do little area by area, you know, as we go through each different section. If you've got any relevant questions on that particular topic, we'll do it then, because there's so many different sections and it'll be confusing to do it at the end. So, yeah. Councillor Telfer.
Yeah, just on page 43, Tim, the Kiratu stream, this was has been a bit of a controversial area for quite a while. We had a lot of complaints about the flooding in that area. Just one question I had there on page 1.3, this page 43. It just says here that 1,100 metres done, which is great, but a 200 metre shady part of the stream which was left. Just questioning, was that at the top end of it or was it in the middle of it? Because if a piece has been left in the middle of it, I would presume it's just going to hold water up.
I'm uncertain, sorry, I can find that detail for you.
Yeah, it wouldn't seem to me logical leaving 200 metres in the middle of the drain if it's been drained further up, because you're not going to achieve what you're trying to achieve.
I'm sure that's the case, but I'll clarify that for you, Councillor.
Councillor Thompson?
Yeah, on page 43 too, it mentions the Anzac Park pricing that it's insurance work. I'm guessing this other job on page 43 isn't insurance work, it's just maintenance. And does it come with any sort of guarantee, or because I know a lot of that water being replaced before, and when you look at the high tide market, the water is always pretty close to the top, and it doesn't look like it's actually been raised much.
So the Anzac.
Yeah, the Anzac, you mentioned that it was insurance work and a price for other work here below the courthouse there.
Oh, the Tolaga Nui.
Yeah, it doesn't mention whether it was insurance work or a cost or anything else. I'm just wondering if it comes with any sort of guarantee, because it doesn't seem to be when you're at your high tide mark, the water's pretty close to the top, and you think if the water gets behind there, it's probably not really good. So I'm just wondering if it comes with any sort of guarantee.
It would come with standard construction sort of warranties and guarantees. I can check for you, and it was funded, I believe, through a wider recovery program, because it was slumping that happened due to weather events. I don't have that information to hand though. I'm sure I can get it for you about what the general warranty protections are, these sorts of work. I can speak to the Anzac one, however, we've built that back a lot stronger than it was under the insurance, so essentially deeper piles. So we don't see that moving again. And I expect with the work with this one, it's probably the strongest bit on the Tūranganui River now as well. But I'll clarify that for you.
So in terms of the height, because when you're high tide, it's pretty close to the top without any rain. and I'm presuming you wouldn't want water in behind there. I'm just wondering why, when we rebuild it higher, we haven't sort of lifted the height much, because it's not going to take much to get in behind the wall.
I'll find out a bit about the methodology, but my feeling is it's anchored back into the ground and it's not subject to the same, it won't be subject, wet or otherwise, it still won't give way. But I'll should get for you. Yeah. And with respect to heights around there, every time you raise something, where's the water go? It's going to choose somewhere else. So the part of the elements is of the river management is that overtopping is part of the river management process. So we'd want it to be resilient to infrequent, but overtopping pretty much everywhere. Yeah. I'll check that for you though, Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the report, Tim. Very comprehensive. And I've got lots of interesting questions for you. So,
great.
So we're just doing section at a time?
Yeah, well, I'll just do two questions at the start. First one, page 39, on the treaty compass analysis, points 5, 6, 7 and 8, all refer to training and staff training and I guess new incoming staff. I was wondering if at some point we could maybe have a report around what sort of training is being done in these areas and numbers being trained and put a benchmark in on how good we're doing in that area. So it's just a request.
Yes, okay.
Thank you. My next question or comment is on page 44 and a declaration of interest. I am a beneficiary of the river management on the TRI and the comment about over the next 3 months, willow management rotation is planned for April, May. Rotation implies a section of the river only is being tackled. There's a real fear in this catchment that unless regrowth is tackled early and decisively, maintaining the river will escalate and become less effective, resulting in a return of a choked river system. And it was the choked river system that caused millions of dollars of preventable damage in the last flood. What assurance can you give us that this job is going to be done decisively?
Thank you for the question. The efforts undertaken with the TRI last year brought a few things into perspective. One was historically we'd underinvested in managing our riparian areas around rivers. And that's not limited to the TRI. Two, the structure we had to fund that work is insufficient for the what you might call best practice. There's no real appetite for everyone to jump in and pay more rates. So what we are looking for is the leanest way of delivering it. The feedback that you're giving there is very helpful because often it can be effective. We're limited mostly to spraying with the hard financial limitations we have on operations. Means getting in there with physical works is beyond the budgets that we have. So recognising that. So in answer to you, work in progress around what's good practice for maintaining it with limited funding. It's part of the entire question. So now we're focusing on that and absolutely take those points that you raise. And there's a conversation with the beneficiaries of the rivers in those catchments that we need to develop. And there's consequences on how we manage our own contractors and what limited funding we have. Right now we don't have the funding in place to do what we'd like, but at least it's recognised. That's what I'd say.
Thank you. Supplementary comment, I think you might be surprised on the appetite for an increase in a rate if it's going to solve the problem long term.
Yes. So that's a conversation I think we need to work through this forum, and then before we engage with our community, see what that might look like, because similar discussions are happening in other infrastructure areas where there might be beneficiaries, and we can't have those conversations directly without first getting some sort of mandate to discuss it. Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll move on to our next part, which is urban stormwater operations, that is on page 45.
Leo's going to pop up, but it'd be great if we talk to stormwater operations and have it all just in one tranche, because they often are similar. But you will notice a lot more visuals we're putting in there purposely to just engage everyone, and I think that helps a bit. Love your comments if not. And we'll take it as read. We've got Leo here. Make them feel.
Councillor Gregory.
Thank you. Just on page 53, the blockage, it's meant to be blockage. There's quite a few blockages. Just wondering what's the content of these blockages? Is it something that's been put down into the system, or is it trees, roots?
It's a combination of various effects. The blockers that you're talking about, particular, maybe large-scale one that happened around Christmas, New Year's, was a combination of someone placing items down into the network that combined other various inputs in there that ended up in that blockage. Sometimes it's tree roots in other parts of the network. It's just a case of working through them systematically. And of recent times, when we did have slightly weather pre-Christmas, there was a lot of fat moving through the system, being mobilised by warmer soil temperatures and collating. So there was a fair bit of clearing that out, which is aligned with the residents and what's coming down through the system.
So I guess we're crossing over into wastewater as well.
Are we or not? Are we stick to storm?
We just did, but Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, page, I'm assuming at paragraph 10, page 40 is just an inadvertent duplication of paragraph 9, where your public consultation talks about further consultation with Māori. But page 47, paragraph 3, under risks, staffing. You haven't identified staffing. Are you confident that you've got the appropriate number of staff and the people on the floor doing the biz?
I think we've invested substantially in the team over the last 18 months and have a very good stormwater, wastewater network team in place that now have gathered experience over that time and working closely with our contractors that service the network. So
it's really reassuring to hear. The next point, my last point in this area is page 50, paragraph 3, under risks, consenting. Many of the activities in proximity to waterways require resource consent. There have been recent changes to how consent for internal projects are processed, but a risk remains to both programs and scope. What is the risk that remains to both project and scope?
The risk around that is a time-based risk in regards to delivery. It's not a risk in terms of the absolution of the project. It's just following correct protocol when we work through these programs to arrive at that outcome, and the associated costs that go with that.
Can you expand a bit more, please? Leo, are you saying that due to recent changes in how council processes consents, they're taking longer and they're costing more? Or you've got to just plan better with your time frames, your lead-in times?
Looking at our timelines when it comes to these project deliveries, allowing an appropriate amount of time to work through that process so that then we can be confident of the outlay of the construction of the project and the timing of it. The consenting time is a little bit unknown as we work through that process.
Final supplementary question, Mr. Chair. So your team is managing this risk how?
Working closely internally in council with the various parties' concerns and to ensure that there is pre-application work done for consent to have the best possible process of that getting through in a timely manner. So effective communication internally.
And I'm assuming with that effective communication, you will reach a position where this risk will dissipate.
Will be managed. Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, just page 45. Just a question. In terms of sumps maintained in October 756, November 72, I'm just wondering why there's such a fluctuation. You not want a steady workflow, or is that because those sumps are in the city and the others are up the coast? Or
It's getting that work done when the conditions are right. So the contractor has got a lot of rotational work to do. The sumps are just one part of it, and the sumps themselves as a citywide project are done over a 3-year rotation. So that there's about 1,000 sumps in total there that were done the first year of that program. And yes, they do focus on trying to get them in a fairly concise period so that other works can be done across the network.
Councillor Cranston.
Yeah, this is an area that the community is normally quite hard on us. I just would like to reiterate the scale of our issues. 327 kilometres of pipes, 3,007 manholes, 46 pump stations, 172 kilometres of storm water piping, 32 kilometres of swales and channels, 6,390 sumps. So, you know, to get on top of that huge scale of things we've got to deal with, I think we're doing a pretty good job of it, getting through it. So I don't think the pure scale of what we're dealing with here is up there.
I'm just interested to know how you prioritise drainage scheme. I mean, there's lots and lots of areas, and you know, number of people affected, likelihood of damage, etc., etc. Just one query that's not mentioned is the drainage scheme through the Heath Johnson Park that's been recently put in, as an example. And how do you analyse, you know, the cost benefit of that to number of people in an area?
That one sits in the public drain, public property system around the DrainWise program. And yes, it is impact on the network in regards to identifying is there a inflow of stormwater issue within that catchment. And what they've done over the period leading up to that project is defined that that particular area that we've addressed there was quite a substantial contributor to stormwater entering the wastewater network through localised flooding, topping gully traps and getting in. It's just not around those immediate properties, it's around that broader area, which that helps resolve a particular issue in that area, and it's one part of a very substantial equation in regards to resolving stormwater.
There's a supplementary. Is there ever a deal done with the local owners? So do they ever contribute to a scheme like that? Or is it solely the council?
In regards to those public drains on private property, it's a council approach around resolving an issue that's impacting our network. It's not specific to our house or it's multiple homes. So that's a case of us doing that project and retaining ownership of that so we can maintain it and ensure that it continues to perform going forward.
Okay, Councillor Telfer.
Just probably the one want is, just around the the stage 2 upgrade of the wastewater treatment plant, there's tertiary.
We're going to go onto that now then, because we're on stormwater, so we'll go on to wastewater, which is start with page 51, we'll do operations and infrastructure. So, Dr. Tova, do you want to do anything first about wastewater?
Or I could take it as read and answer it.
Councillor Telfer.
Yeah, just around the tertiary filter, it seems to be going on for a long time. When you get a design for a plant, surely that comes with some pretty robust guarantees, and it seems to be dragging on. Are we getting somewhere, or is it still flying?
We are getting somewhere. Yes, it has been a process, but I think previously in previous explanations, there was a process of needing to optimise the plant around that particular, the tertiary filters that were of issue, to ensure we were sitting in with the performance, delivering the product to it in the right specification. So that was last year in regards to getting to that point, and we opened up dialogue with the supplier. That resulted in active trials being done late last year of tertiary filter when we were in a position to do it, and subsequently, not in this report, but has resulted in an on-site visit from that supplier just in the last couple of weeks. And so we're now at a point that they've gathered information. We're just working through any additional information that we're required to support their position on getting performance out of design performance out of that tertiary filter. So yes, a long process to get where we're at. We're in that stage now where we're in a position to work through the solutions with the so over the next few weeks. We'll have a much better understanding of where to from here.
You're pretty confident you're going to get there?
From where we are with the knowledge that they've gained from their visit, they're very clear on what the issues are, and we'll come back with what is required to resolve, so that understanding will come in the few weeks.
Because yeah, this is something. This is going to lead on to another conversation we'll probably have in the future around what do we use this water for once it comes out at a certain, once we know the standard of what are we able to get out of that plant, then what doors does it open, how we can use it, but we've got to resolve that before we can actually go down that.
Councillor Robinson.
Chair, so on that same question line, you had said on page 51 under this heading that following assessment additional information had been requested. Was that by them or us?
From them in regards to support the information they required for their visit.
For their visit?
For their visit.
They had their visit, right?
They had their visit, so this is written as at the end of December, so we're in history here.
Yeah.
So
and in hindsight, Leo, they've had their visit, they've had their additional information, and the ball's now in their court to work up a solution to make sure the final stage works according to what they sold us.
in that we had a meeting on that internally with their request, just to affirm that back to them this week. So yes, it's firmly.
And when do you expect them to come back with the answer we want to hear?
In due course, once they've had time to analyse and come back to it.
Have you put a time frame on them? Have you said, look, when
the intent is
Easter?
The intent is to have this sort of financial year in regards to having that resolved or position on the resolution, so as quickly as possible.
So, and just a supplementary question, Mr. Chair. In the event that this doesn't resolve, and that is addressed in here, what are the options if not achieved? Now, have you had that conversation with them, or is you just keeping our powder dry?
Yeah, at the moment we're working in collaboration with them around the solutions to the issue. If those solutions aren't there, then we'll be working through things for both council and for the supplier.
Thank you.
Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, we've been over this and discussed this in prior meetings. I just want to reiterate here that it was council's expectation that they'd meet their performance obligations and that there'll be no cost on council. That cost will be on the supplier. That's sort of where we landed last time it was discussed. So I just want to reiterate, yeah, we sort of landed last time on that, and I don't think my stance hasn't changed. To the tertiary filter performance, that wasn't meeting.
In regards to that, we're obviously working through the contract obligations that exist with the contract that was signed for that principal piece of equipment that council purchased. So they'll be the governing drivers in that. At the moment, it is working through with that supplier in regards to a logical solution that does not impact on council.
Have we got any more questions on wastewater? We'll move on to water supply. That's on page 57. That's Robinson.
Thank you. Sang Dam. Page 58, the top of page 58. It would be really useful to do a paragraph numbers on these reports so we can reference paragraphs. Sang Dam is considered potentially dangerous due to an unstable dam wall. Safety protocols implemented and draining the dam to Karakia manages the risk of uncontrolled breach. I've gone back through a number of previous papers searching for any information about Sang Dam. The best I could come up with was there's some slumpage. We had a $310,000 budget in 2024 for assessing the slumpage, and that the Sang Dam was going to be drained to manage that. But this is next level. This now says that it's being considered potentially dangerous. So a number of questions. First up, where does this sit in our recently formulated dam policy, dangerous dams structures policy? First question.
So that classification did come from the experts in that area who were looking at the classification of our dams, and the Sang Dam classification was potentially dangerous due to requiring an assessment of the slumpage within the wall to deem if that was an appropriate classification or not. We're working through that process with them now. They have been to site, they've got a preliminary report that will be coming out by the end of March in regards to the corrective actions around remedying that issue with the wall. So yes, it is a part, the classification is a part of that dam assessment process. Initially it was classed as the same as our other dams, as medium. It was only since a site visit recently in regards to potentially reclassifying it, potentially dangerous. So that report in 2024 explained our actions, which was at the time we were low on water, so that all of the Sang water was used in our network, moved into the Karakia Dam, so nothing was wasted. Dam was emptied to ensure that there was no ongoing, or minimise that ongoing risk, keeping the water level low while we work through understanding what's required to remediate that.
So the work we're talking about is the slumpage on the dam wall. Is it worse than anticipated?
The
categorisation's gone up from...
It's continued in regards to, it's the same as what it was. It hasn't worsened recently. It's what we have had is these fresh set of eyes on it that have classified it and are now working on what required to fix the issue.
So we had $310,000 budgeted for that assessment work. Did we come in within budget?
So, the Sang Dam has got in total $400,000, I think, or just under.
Another $218,000 budget in 2025.
And then there is also a dam resilience line as well in regards to the budgeting. We do not know what this this work will cost. We're waiting on that for these designers to come back with a high-level estimate.
I did note that in the 21 LTP, there was $2 million assigned to the Sang Dam remedial. But, I mean, that's obviously been overtaken by the current 3-year plan. There's no water in the dam at the moment, so it doesn't pose a risk to anyone downstream. Okay. Mr. Chair, give me a moment, please. Risks under this category, page 59, budget restraints, second bullet point, budget restraints curtailing operations in the last quarter of the financial year. Can you expand on that, please? You've identified as a risk. I took from earlier kōrero in this report that you anticipated managing the budgets because we weren't having to use the Waipawa stream, Waipawa pump station, etc., etc. Is it still a realistic risk?
So just clarifying, are we talking about operational budget or, sorry, what page?
Page 59.
Yeah, the team have just acknowledged in regards to there are budget constraints in regards to what we're working within that environment, and the team are working to best endeavours to maximise the utilisation of the operational budget to ensure levels of service, and as noted within the comments around the current budget position, we used the fine weather pre-Christmas to do a lot of work on the dam roads for access, which has impacted on the budgets to date, and then managing it effectively from in the new year to rebalance out. Because essentially in our world, we have times of the year when it's nice and fine and we can get a lot of work done. So we make hay while the sun shines, and then in the autumn and winter months, reduce expenditure so that we're just maintaining level service.
Yeah, thanks for that. The silt issue, is that resolved now? Is it clarified? If it has, do you have any indication of what sort of event will bring that issue back? Will it be a heavy rainfall event, or is it really a massive storm that does that?
The lamellas are working exceptionally well within the water treatment plant and helping us manage that issue. During times of heavy rainfall, there still is agitation within the dam that creates clouding or suspension. It's an ongoing issue. We are working with the insurers at the moment in regards to the solution that we did have, which was the lamellas, which ensures that it's a manageable issue going forward. And there is currently a proposal or requirement out there that we're doing a report on the issue that was caused and what caused that issue within those dam walls to support our insurance claims.
So it was outside just pure volume issue of water coming in. There was something else happening.
It is. So the dam walls have been impacted through Gabriel and movement within the water rushing over them, which has caused agitation within that water body. How long that takes to settle might come out in this report that we've requested. The lamellas are specifically there to manage that issue for water delivery going forward.
Any more questions on water?
Sorry, second bite. Just on that, a couple of questions come to mind. How did the spraying of the banks, with the aerial spraying to hold the banks, how did that go, the vegetation spray?
We've had a good period of that getting away, and it's looking good at this particular time.
Okay, and final question was, from memory, that slumping caused a reduction in the capacity of the dams. I can't remember the percentage, but it was quite significant. Overall, with the Sang Dam out, what actual capacity level are we running at with the dams at the moment?
Sang is our smallest dam at 300,000 cube. So the impact, while there, it's not substantial. This lumpage amount did have an impact. Again, that the higher research that we're going to have done will inform us of that. But where we're tracking, obviously, water demand through to sort of mid-December, where the rivers were getting down, so we're tracking that well in regards to what dam storage we had, and we're in a good position. So it's an impact that we'll try and resolve as quickly as possible with sorting the Sang Dam. But at the moment, those impacts, while there, are not, there is a percentage effect, not.
So I may not have been clear on my question. I thought we had lost a percentage capacity of the dams with the sides collapsing into it with Gabrielle. I do recall reading a percentage number some time ago. That obviously hasn't been remedied because that debris sitting, the water should be sitting inside the dam. What was the percentage that we're left with? Not volume of we're meeting demand, but what actual percentage capacity have we got in those dams?
I have to get that information and come back to you. I don't know that off.
We've probably been quite fortunate that we've had a very hot summer, and one dam out, and the others having lost some capacity, but we can't rely on that for next summer, say. So I'm just thinking ahead with Sang repairs, where we're going to sit in a year's time with our capacity to meet the town's demand for water in a dry summer. That's all.
The focus remains on remedying that Sang Dam within a sensible time period. We'll understand what that timeline looks like in the next, actually within the next report period.
3 months?
Or by end of March, we'll have that report, so we'll understand. It will be a project for the new financial year.
Thank you, Leah.
Councillor Telford.
Yeah, I just query that a little bit. I'm sort of coming, I think I'm coming from where Tony is. Now that's our crucial water supply and volume, and we've been lucky. We haven't had a serious drought here in Gisborne, which we potentially should be lined up for a dry summer. And I would have thought that would become a priority to get fixed, because our construction season is getting limited. If we're going to start this next construction season, then when's the dam going to get filled? Because we've got our best chance to fill it. So I would have thought this becomes a bit of a priority to move forward and put something else on hold, as far as budgeting. I'm just wondering about that.
There's no budget constraints in regards to holding the timeline on this. This is primarily making sure that what is done is appropriate and corrects it going forward. So we're not rushing in and doing something where we're still could be classed in a dangerous realm. So it's a substantial project, and doing it right the first time is critical. We've got the right experts involved, and they're going as fast as they can to put us in a position where we've got a construction program.
Thank you, Chair. Page 60. Water mains renewal. And it's a question I've asked before, but I think we need to keep an update on it. 300 kilometres of network, 35% concrete, 75 kilometres, and we're roughly replacing it at a rate of 15 kilometres in 10 years. Which means we won't finish replacing that for 40 years. Is that going to be okay, or should we be going faster?
Specifically driven by the asset age and the timing of those assets, performance of those assets. So we measure that quite closely and ensure where those renewals are done are appropriate. There's potentially a requirement for a slight increase in regards to that activity over the coming years, but to date, as we see by the way the network's performing compared to other councils, we do not have any issues. So it's keeping it in balance with what's actually physically required.
Right, any more questions on water? Okay, well, we'll go to page 64 and talk about roads and footpaths, operations and construction. Dave.
related to roads we'll do in this
Yep.
section,
Bridges.
if they're in here.
Councillor Faringa.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Page 68, Taupari. Thank you for the update in regards to the 9.4. What's the time frame in regards to that?
We've just lodged our resource consent, and so seems to be on a good path, and then we can apply for funding to NZTA, and that's been locked in, and so we're looking soon at construction season.
So when's the next construction season?
So,
Give me a month and a year.
October, November.
October, November 25.
That's for the 9.4.
For the 9.4. Do we also have an update in regards to the Taupari further, the part of the road Taupari further up? I think it's a really important discussion that we need to have, and I'm going to keep bleeding about it while I'm still around this table in regards to Taupari, because that's the backup route for when State Highway 35 goes up. So do we have any update in regards to that upper end of Taupari as well?
I have a quick one as we've gone out for an RFQ. So we're talking about Taupari Parlo 37 kilometres. We're not talking about 9.5. Yes. So the Jeffords property and like 800 vehicles per day down Jeffords. We're talking about the 37, maybe 20, maybe 10 vehicles per day. Taupari Parlo. It's a very different road up there. So we've gone out for RFQ for 3 suppliers to basically cut a track up there. That track will, in all likelihood, it would be, if approved, would be closed road just for selected parties. And the important part of that equation is maintaining that annually is going to be one of the most expensive roads to maintain annually. And how do we do that? Because there's been some input about value of properties behind it, etc. Maybe it's time for us to have those conversations with beneficiaries about maintaining it if that gets opened. There's 2 big drivers here, sort of convenience and amenity for the community there, school, health, all those other routes. And 2 is the value of the farming enterprises, including ones that are of the interest of council. But we do not have the budget to maintain that once open. Do not have the operational budget to maintain it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Barry, for your candid response. I think that's the kind of conversation the community is up for. I think if we've learned anything from the 3-year plan engagement that we had with the community last year, is that there's this real sense of, man, our affordability is here, but our needs are here. How can we, like Councillor Parata had earlier commented on in regards to our working relationship with trusts around Reynolds Hall, etc., how can we work better with our landowners and with the beneficiaries of those roads? And again, setting expectation, because I've met with a lot of those whānau up there, and they're realistic about what could service them. And I'm people focused here. You know, I'm not thinking of, yes, there would be a need for stock trucks and things like that, but I'm actually just thinking of the families that live up and down there that need to drive up the Mata and then down through Toko to take their kids to school rather than going directly to Uawa. I'm thinking of when 35 goes out, and we've used Taupari so many times, so many times as a connection for our whānau up the coast, down through Uawa, then back down to here. So that's kind of the focus, and I feel like the community is up for the conversation. So thank you very much for your candid replies. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Telford.
Yeah, I just didn't have that. I just want to clarify that it's not just about the people living up there that walk around that alternative access, and it's no different than what just happened with Ahungia to Ahu and Mata. That's another link, opens up a link for that person, and the Taufree is no different. You know, if something happens between those points, that's the only other access down the coast. So I think it needs to be used in context similar to the Ahongia Te Ahau Mata link. But my other one was my favourite one that you love me talking about, Dave, is the, on page 65. Yeah, the traffic management. I think this is just great because this actually emphasises what we've been talking about for a long time on the temporary traffic management. Is that here we are, a classic example of a contractor that can do this traffic management for $900 a day, and a tier 1 contractor is $2,500 a day and are not willing to move. Well, that's exactly where we've been wanting to get to, and that proves what we've been talking about for a long time.
Yeah, that's
So thank you.
It's Lily's team. Libby's team.
Libby.
So let's roll that out what it costs the whole district, and everyone will be happy, and we'll shut up and
There'll be another issue.
There will be another issue. Oh, burn. Burn. You go, Tim.
Councillor Robinson.
Oh, I thought Councillor Gregory had hand up.
Oh, I'm going to go down the line.
All right, so page 64, road maintenance activities, paragraph 1, or heading 1. Second paragraph says, Council's urban streetlight network has been under a substantial repair program since the end of November 24. Is this to do with the deficient or defunct LED lights? And is that cost being shifted home to manufacturers as opposed to the ratepayer?
We are considering our position on that, given the limited nature of the benefit we might receive, given the expense and risk it would be to go through a legal route. So we are considering that with our legal team. Is that right? Response? If you like, we get replacement. A lot of the work is getting them in the air. It's not covered in the warranty. Warranty is simply for the items. There's conjecture about why and how they failed. That requires expensive scientific results to act on our side that we'd have to invest in, and it might not give us the results we might want. Do we want to drop that money in there, or do we want to consider some sort of class action with other territorial authorities also in the same situation? We favour that last approach.
As a supplementary, has there been failures of this same light system in other territories?
Reportedly, yes. And we know those areas, and we are talking to them.
All right. The next thing is, if we're replacing them with like for like or like similar, and it's our infrastructure which is causing them to fail, surely you need to know that, otherwise the new replacements will fail too.
Our infrastructure that's been questioned is our cabling, which is a very minor part of it, and it's simply a question, but it sits in that space which is difficult to prove or not. In all cases, we're ensuring that every new build goes in with new coupling as well that meets specification, so that this dispute won't arise in exactly the same way in the future.
Can you at some point in the near future bring us back a statement which says this is the cost of this process, these are our options? I'd like to know, because we've all driven around town seeing black holes, flickering lights. This has been going on for probably almost 2 years. We need to be able to wrap this up for our community so they know where this cost lies, and we can draw a line under it and go, okay, fine, we're walking away from the cost, or yes, we're going to go the manufacturers, okay? The next thing is, the next paragraph says we've graded 29,000 kilometres of road. Is that correct?
29,000 kilometres?
Yeah, this next paragraph says.
No, we've only got...
Well, I did wonder, I thought maybe we graded every road 10 times, plus GST. Is that just a typo? 290k has been graded? 2,900k?
2,900.
Are we doing public transport at this time? We're just doing roads.
Public transport as well, yeah, if you like.
So page 65, it currently says the new bus contract is currently under evaluation. What is the timeframes for the new bus contract being concluded? And in doing this process, will there be a review of whether the proposed bus contract is fit for purpose? In other words, in reviewing the contract, are we sitting down and looking at whether our bus service is fit for purpose? And also, does any new proposed bus service meet our aspirations and our obligations towards our reducing our carbon footprint? Because that should be fore and foremost in our thoughts in renegotiating a bus contract.
Dave will correct me when I go down the wrong route. Libby, unfortunately, is not able to be here today, but we are negotiating a present contract. We went to the market, but only one respondent came in, so that's a negotiation. We're getting professionals to assist with that process. In terms of, they did come back with a low carbon option for us, but it was prohibitively expensive with a totally new fleet of buses. Perspective. What I would say is if you're using a bus and you're using the dirtiest diesel engine in that bus, it's still better value if that bus is, and better for the environment than the alternates of everyone dropping kids off at school, etc. We aren't using dirty diesel engines, but in terms of what's green and what isn't, it's very prohibitively expensive on our network to go green with the new buses now that these buses are made of jurisdictions. So the first approach was just unaffordable for us without tipping in more ratepayer money into that pot.
So are you saying that the proposal for greener buses was a cost that we had to bear for the bus fleet? We had to buy the bus fleet?
Not sure how the split works.
Yeah, sorry, just the, as far as my knowledge is the agency gave a rollout of where they wanted bigger savers of carbon. So it was the big metros first that were the big rollout for the electric buses, because there were more people on, so we get more savings, and then it would come down into the metros, and then the rules would follow next week when that would come through. So that was the incentive we were getting from NZTA.
From who?
NZTA. It was a rollout from the GPS as well, because there are more people in the cities, so that's where they're getting more people and more buses. So that's where they wanted to roll out the electric buses first.
Okay, but that might be their kaupapa, but we have an obligation, we have aspirations, we're at the point of renegotiating our contract. That should be something that we should be really advocating strongly for. Greener buses for our region. We're not a huge city. We have a very tight bus network. And if we have greener buses, maybe more people will use them. If we have a better bus route, maybe more people will use them. And what I'm saying to you is, are we in this process right now looking at our needs, and are we fit for purpose? Like, can we expand the bus route by 10% but actually gain 20% more patronage? I mean, have we gone through the process of, instead of just rolling the ball over and taking what we're given, saying, actually, here's what we want, here's our aspirations, we're looking future forward, now what can you do for us? Have you gone through that process?
I can't speak on the tender process, but part of our procurement process, and you'll see in the procurement strategy, there's been a review of the routes. Okay, and so we've put that into our procurement strategy. That's coming up. That's what the agency want to see, is if there's additional costs, we're looking at whether we want to see them in part of it as a transport. And so that's been discussed with the Regional Transport Committee, but we'll have to make sure that comes back.
Okay, final part of the cherry. Are you aware of the trial over in Tolaga with basically the dial-up little taxi system? I did research it. Has staff looked at that? There's potential for trialling it here?
They have, and also Timaru, I think, are running it. So we've been looking at those options. Yeah. We've got some big headwinds here, though.
We have, through the chair, Our policy team are engaged with all transport planners from across New Zealand, and they actively share good practice, new innovations, what's happening in ticketing that we then bring into our our public transport plan. So we're very engaged across what's happening wider across public transport.
Kia ora, tēnā kōrua. I just wanted to get an update on what's happening with the Waipiro Loop Road complaint. If we could have some update, please.
I can give you an update through the chairs. So we've got another meeting scheduled with the community. They're looking at March 12th, and there will be an invitation that will come out from Pearl BT for that meeting for Wednesday.
Yeah, thanks. My question is about maintenance contracts and regarding footpaths. On a consultation at the library, we had Mrs. Barwick there, and she gave us the issue of the Riverside Road pathway, which is not something she's not done before. She's done it a few times. So I just wonder, are the maintenance contracts site-specific, as in it's really weird down there, because from Russell Street on, beautifully maintained, nice wide pathway. Russell Street back for 100 yards, the weeds are encroaching onto the footpath and you can't even get a mobility scooter down there, so there's a big section there that's never maintained, and then you come back a bit closer to town and then it's beautifully maintained again. So I just don't understand why there's this section in the middle that's not maintained. And you know, she's got a friend that wants to come on in her mobility scooter, and you can't get there. It's about that wide. So how does a maintenance contract work that they would do such a good job either side, but not that bit?
Sometimes, and you know, some of the local residents who live opposite go and clean that up as part of a...
Yeah, it's on the other side of the road. Maybe they do. But no, I think she said RFS do. I think. Yeah.
But most of the RFS, you know, the team will just see if there's a footpath fault. Yeah. So it's quite, and they've got a list of faults that they go through and they implement. So in terms of the grass vegetation coming over it, they may not prioritise that and then fixing the faults first.
Yeah, I mean, it's so far over the road that it's been yonked.
It's being done yesterday, actually, Andy. So.
Oh, really? There you go, because I drove down 2 days ago.
Well into the operations team. Yeah.
Cool. So why wouldn't they pick it up, do you think?
Part of it too is when we applied for our 3-year funding, reported at the last operations committee that we actually applied for funding in for footpath improvements and maintenance, and actually we didn't get that funding, and so it's been cut by about a third. So the team are trying to go and reset the budget they've got to try and meet that. So it's the first time that we actually had more money and NZTA did it. You know? So we put a big footpath budget program forward, and that was part of the feedback we had from the 3-year plan as well.
Councillor Pahalulu.
Thank you, Chair. I just like hearing you say my name.
Same. I hold my breath for a little while and then I relax.
I appreciate you making the effort to say my name quickly, and every time you say it, it gets better, so thank you. On page 67, just in regards to the 1,000-year bridge, what are the additional touches that Ngāti One here are requiring in order that we can open it?
We're not sure, to be honest.
Oh, okay.
And that's something we're working with Makarai. And once we do know, then there is no more budget, and if we have to apply for more funding, then we'll know. We've met what we believe is in the contract documents, but we have to go back.
So there's no sort of, we don't know when the date will be.
I don't know.
Okay.
Councillor Gregory.
Oh, I was going to ask exactly that question that Councillor Pahuruhuruwai just asked, and wanting to know also where the funding would come from, because I understand Trust Tarawhiti did fund that, some of it at the end there. But anyway, you've answered that. So also, I also was interested in the public transport. Significant improvement needed here on page, the last page, 86. Sorry, 85. 85. And I am on the Regional Transport Committee and have had input into the public transport plan that we worked on as part of our regional transport plan. And I do invite councillors to have a look at that if they wish to contribute to that situation, because it's quite full and has a number of different options that that have been looked at and are being looked at.
Councillor Gregory.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I was wondering whether our artiste and councillor Tupara could enlighten us on what might be the hold up on the 1,000-year bridge.
We'll talk about that later.
Happy to talk with Dave offline. Yeah, have you got any indications how long that might be before? I mean, I've seen people over it already quite regularly, and it's quite disturbing to think that people are on there when they shouldn't be. It hasn't been blessed or anything. So, the longer we wait for this, the more concerning I think a lot of residents are getting. What is actually needed? What is it, more artistic work, or what is needed on the bridge before it can be opened? Because we've missed a huge opportunity over summer with all our tourists and cruise ships that are arriving. I just see this huge beneficial asset sitting there, and with not much information about why it isn't open. Have we got any time frames?
No, we haven't.
No, it's just crazy.
Crazy, but
okay. Hopefully we'll get something sorted soon. Have we got any more to discuss about roading and footpaths? Councillor Robinson.
Oh, Councillor Robinson hasn't spoken yet. I had a few questions, but they've all sort of been answered along that row. Just touching on Rob's point in terms of the $900 a day for Tier 3 and 2.5 for Tier 1, and saying that Tier 1 don't want to budge on their national policy. When you go through the NZTA procurement procedures, it says it must be designed to be getting the best value for money. And when you're paying $2.5 a day, where you could be paying $900 a day, you're not getting best value for money. So where it says you must get the best value for money, I think it must be something we can do to bring them in line with that $900 a day. I'm sure Tier 1's got the contract subcontracted to a Tier 3. They're getting a bill for $900, and I guarantee they'll be charging council $2.5 a day, even though they'll be still flipping the ticket on traffic management. I just think we need to push that, and I think we've got tools there to be able to push that.
Just to follow up on that, so we have to report every quarter, every council does in New Zealand, agency, and so that goes up to the minister. Temporary traffic management costs are across the country. You will see trends.
Councillor Telfer.
Yeah, just a query, page 90, just on the NZTA Network Outcomes Contract, the incumbent NZTA Network Outcomes Contract was Downer. Can you just clarify what actually is that?
So we're now into the procurement program. We'll talk about.
So part of what the council has to do as part of the procurement is just find out what other contracts, what our NZTA is doing. So it's just so that when we start putting contracts out, is there anything else that's going on in the market? So once this contract goes out, I don't know what the details of the contract. All they're saying is that they'll start the tender process for the new maintenance contract. So what it is, though, is that then they'll be able to, you know, the start date will go forward. If it's not, then the start date will be September 2025. So that'll be, we're not involved in that, but they'll have their tender process in a local.
All a little bit confused. Like, this said it's a network outcomes contract, and Downers have got it. Currently on our network, there's Fulton Hogan that have got different areas, there's Downers have got, we've got...
Oh, no, yeah, but that's for the highway.
That's for the highway?
Yeah, this is for the highway contract, not for the council. Yeah, okay.
It's consequential for us in terms of who's in the market, and some of it can be complementary, and some of it could erode our own capacities. It will also be all-encompassing for organisations of a scale to be applying for this work. So we know that they'll only have eyes for NZTA when this procurement process goes forward. So that's important for our general discussions.
Any more queries on our procurement program?
Yeah, thank you for the report, and it is, there's quite a lot of info in there, and it's quite hard to get your head around it. Still sort of, yeah, I realise that now applies to TREC, that bit, but that panel we're talking about on page 90, and I know we talk about conflicts of interest later on, but so how is conflicts of interest addressed when you have people sitting on a panel that are also part of the tender? Is that what's happening here?
No. They're separated. None of those contractors, none of those organisations are on any tender.
On any tender?
No.
No, well, there's a couple of names here where I have heard criticism about that they might be. So move on from there. Page 93, when we start talking about...
Oh, sorry. With the exception of Seven Rivers, they do have some procurement people that sometimes will bring them out.
What about LDE?
No.
We're on page
23.
23. So people are in charge of an area. So when it comes to a job in each of those areas, is there no tendering process? If someone's allocated a responsibility for the maintenance of that area of work, does that override tendering process, or does that?
Yeah, I just make sure I've got the question. So if it's a normal maintenance activity, which is included in part of a maintenance contract, then that's maintained by Fulton's, Downers, Blackbean.
And so they go ahead and do whatever work they do, and then they send a check to you. So at that point, what price checks do we put in? Do we go back and say, well, hey, they did that? Should it have cost 50 grand?
Yeah, so they've scheduled rates. The issue we're trying to bring is when it becomes an emergency event, then basically they go to AWEC rates, and that's why you're seeing a lot more of the. We're just trying to make sure the maintenance contracts just stay with maintenance, and there's initial response where they have to make the roads safe, but the ongoing recovery work then gets tendered, and that's a separate process. We do need to shorten that time up a bit more.
And also the indications are that the government is going to reduce contributions for it, which previously has been a free hit, right? And treated as such by contractors because of availability to everyone in this region's benefit. But when you're actually contributing to it, like we will be in the future with lower, then we have to be more measured in how we respond, depending on the road and the beneficiaries, etc.
Yeah, no, totally. And the number of times we're going to dip in a 20-year situation now, not a 10-year, it's not.
No, the indications are that it will be a same return period, so a 10-year storm period, but a FAR rate is halving. Is it Yeah, so the rate half, so a larger contribution from here, which effectively means, that means we, damage to our roads are way more consequential on our bottom line. So we've got to change the way we're thinking.
Just clarification, hasn't been confirmed. We don't know what the final decision is. We just know from when they were consulting that there were changes. So the final decision of what those emergency rates and those fire rates and those conditions that we may be operating hasn't been confirmed as of yet.
What Dave was mentioning earlier that's important to note is because we've been in this environment of recovery and storms and quite well supported comparatively from Crown entities, then our contractors have developed expertise in that area. It doesn't change. They've got to be good at other stuff. And unfortunately it's less sugar. So it's a leaner approach and it's more measured and it's maybe it's going to take 3 or 4 days to clear a route because we'll scope it rather than everyone just appearing and start projects when they happen.
Yeah, it is. We need to get more efficient doing what we're doing. My last comment is around 108, page 108, and the the awarding of these tenders. And you just got to look at our budget and how much more money we're spending today than we were 3 years ago. Phenomenal money. Acknowledge the fact that we have had big holes in our procurement staffing over the years, and I don't know how well that's now filled, but there's a suggestion that we're still not quite there. And how reasonable would it be to request that we have or put in place an auditing process whereby we could randomly select some of the projects that are being let and to take them out of region and have them peer reviewed for cost? Is that a sort of thing that a council can do? Is that something we should be doing if we want to be very sharp penciled about how we're spending this money?
Use consultants to do that.
It costs so much money.
You need to think very carefully before you answer now.
Yes, but we're looking to sharpen our pencil with the consultant.
With consultant money spent, so it's the balancing of that.
What you'll end up is arguments both sides. Whose numbers do you believe? You have to go back to 1984 to realise how the country don't measure everything equally when we gave away our standard process of accounting for projects back then, so everyone could do things differently. So it's pretty hard to get a direct measure between two different areas. In terms of the process we're following, we're confident at the moment, at least, right now, that our market is acting as a market should. And that the processes we're following are robust and are auditable in themselves. So we should have confidence that we're getting fair value on all our projects today. There's no shortage of people putting their hands up wanting to work, is what I'm saying. Some things in our region too do cost more. It costs more to build some things here, and some of the locations we work in are a big part of that. Just getting to work could buy an hour and a half every day.
I'd also like to acknowledge all our voting team as well. We've got a lot of experience in our voting team. Dave's been around for a long time, and a lot of the staff members have been around for a long time. So they're not. You guys are vigilant. You know what's going on. You hear what's going on. So if there's any extortionist activity happening, I'm sure they would pick it up.
Well, Mr. Chair, I counter that. I've had numerous comments from people out there that are right at the coalface, and they're suggesting that there is some cost escalation. That they're surprised at how much money a job is worth. Having been in forestry, for example, and now moving into road.
That's fine, yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Hey, I'm happy to move this, this report, and I echo your sentiments to our staff and all the hard work that has gone on. Thank you very much for the report, Mr. Barry. Happy to move, seconded by yourself.
Okay, just a noting report, moved by Councillor Faringa, seconded by Councillor Gregory. All those in favour?
Aye.
Okay, well, that's the end of it.